Hello, my name is Peter Parfitt and welcome to New Brick Workshop. Some of you may remember this Gothic bench which I made over 6 years ago. It's made of oak and I finished it with some outdoor Osmo UV protection oil. And in 2018 I gave it a little bit of a spruce up and included the re-osmoing in one of my workshop notes videos. However, in the last year it's had a pretty punishing time, because it's been used not as a bench in the garden, but more of a sort of bench for people to do outside jobs. And it's got bits of concrete on it here. It was covered in earth and soil and stuff like that. And so I've been asked if I will clean it up. Now, I've had quite a bit of interest about benches, and it's my intention that once I've finished this video that I will go on to show you another way of making quite a nice garden bench. Now let's just look at the defects on this one, apart from its bit of concrete here. Now the wood that I've used for this came from a skip, and it wasn't particularly good at the time because it had been rejected by the timber yard who had put the wood in the skip in the first place. So we've got rather big splits here running all the way through and pretty deep at the end. And I think I pointed out in the 2018 video a little bit of rot here. But having re-looked at the original video when I made this bench, this defect existed then. There's some more splits here. So what I want to do is to fill all these major defects, these major splits, with some epoxy resin. Now I thought, well, should I first of all rub it down and then put the resin in? I thought, well, no, it's silly. Put the resin in now, and then I just have one session of sanding everything at the end. So I'm now going to get ready to put in the epoxy. Now in the past, for small bits of work, I've used this Milliput epoxy. It has 2 solid sticks inside. You cut off equal amounts for what you need, mix the 2 together, and away you go. But this job is far too big for that. So I'm going to be using this stuff. This is Bonder wood fill. I got this through a friend of mine, but you'll have to do a Google search to find Bonder wood fill in order to find where you can buy it in the country where you are. Now I've got 2 colours. This one is ebony and this one is called Super Soft Dark, which is a sort of dark brown. And I'm going to mix the 2 together in order to do the filling. Now the way the epoxy works is that you have a filler, which is what's in this big can, and then you have a hardener, that's what's in this tube. And depending on how much of the hardener you put into the mixture depends how long it takes to set. And when I made our oak dining room table, I mixed up, I thought I'll mix up a nice lot and do it all in one go. I was not even halfway through, maybe not even a third of the way through before it went solid. So so my lesson there was don't mix up more than you can apply in one go. However, it's pretty smelly stuff, and so in my workshop I haven't got enough ventilation to do something like this, so I'm going to be doing this outside. I won't even open the tin in here. I'm going to use a mixture of the 2 colours, and I'm going to mix the 2 bits of the filler first to get enough that I will use for the whole of this project, and then when I need to do some filling, I will take some of that mixture, add some of the hardener, and then use that. That way I can always go back to my original mixture, which has not yet had the hardener, to get some more to continue the process and therefore have even colour throughout the project. Now some of these defects go all the way through, so rather than applying the stuff and letting it then just naturally drip through, on the underside I'm going to put some tape. And the reason for that is it's absolutely pretty obvious. I just don't want the filler dripping out after I've applied it. So I'm going to put some of this on here, and I will do that all the way around where there are splits that go completely through the wood. I'm not quite sure how I'll play it with these vertical surfaces here, because they too go all the way through, but they're not very big. So I'm going to rely on the fact that I can get some filler in there, and it may be that I have to then go back a second time to complete the filling process. But those splits aren't quite so bad as these ones on the main seat. And whilst I've got this upside down, I hope you can see that where the weather and the various workers using their concrete bags and all the rest of it, where those haven't managed to attack this, this oak is in pretty good condition. The Osmo has protected it really well. And really it's only the top which has seen the abuse, and that's included 6 or 7 years of some pretty variable UK weather and a lot of sunshine as well. Now at this stage I'm just mixing up the two components. That's the browny colour stuff and the black stuff, and at this stage we're not going to put any hardener in at all, and that's really, really important. Now it's got a consistency of, I suppose, soft chocolate would be a good description. And my judgment as to how much I use is just a guess. I'm not being particularly clever about this. No science at this stage. I think that's more than enough. I'll get the other one. I've got a new stick, and I don't need quite so much of the black. I think that is probably enough. And again, I'm going to leave that stick in there in the hope that it will be usable the next time I come to do this. I'm now going to mix these two together. And again, remember at this stage there is no hardener in here at all. Now you can probably just about work out that this has gone quite dark, even though I didn't use a great deal of the black. Now remember, I'm mixing this outside because of the volatile nature of the stuff they use to make this. So a lot of fumes, and they're not particularly good for you. So I'm doing it all outside in the fresh air, and there's a reasonable breeze today. So I'm pretty happy with that. That's mixed well enough. Remember, still no hardener. So I'm now going to take a little pot, and I'm going to put as much as I think I'm going to be able to use in one go into here, put a bit of hardener, and then apply it to the bench. Well, that's my first amount. I'm really not sure whether this is going to go off like lightning or not. Anyway, we shall see. Now, the hardeners from these two tins are the same, and I've used one before and I can't remember which one I used. Must be this one. So I'm now going to use a little drop of this, and it's not very much at all. There it goes. I'm now going to mix this as fast as I can. And having done that, I'm going to start applying it as fast as I can. That's that first lot used up, and I've managed to do that big crack along there. It will need a tiny bit of extra filler in at a later stage. I'm now going to mix up some more and do the rest. Well, that's it. I've put all of the jollop on. I've got through 4 little containers, which I'll have to throw away. And I mixed up another lot, about the same as the first lot that you saw. So as far as I'm concerned, that's everything done to the standard that I require it. And all I've got to do now is leave that to absolutely go off, and then start sanding. And after that, put on new Osmo. Right, it's now time to do a bit of sanding. I'm going to use 2 sanders. This one is the DTS 400. And I'm going to start with this one because I can get into all the corners, and I'll be using 80 grit to start with. And the other sander I'll use is my ETS-EC 150 oblique 3, and again I will be putting an 80 grit disc on this to start with, and I'll finish the sanding at 120 grit, and I'm using granite. And now it's time to put some Osmo on. Now I've actually already done one coat, and I'm using the 425 oak transparent, and I've used this at every stage on this bench, right from the time when it was newly created over 6 years ago. So I'm just about to put the second coat on. It's very easy. I'm putting it on with a brush. I'm not then wiping it off because I find that with these pigmented colours, it's better to just brush it on carefully and not try and wipe it off at all. Not the easiest of things to be filming in this bright sunshine, but as my workshop doesn't have very good ventilation, I felt it better to do this outside, and it's particularly important when I use the filler. And I hope you can see with what I've done already on this leg just how nice it's starting to look. There's no need to rub down between coats. Just make sure you do your very best so it goes on streak-free. I've always liked this feature here with this bench. The reason it's like this is that was one solid piece of wood, and it had a pretty major defect in that space there and another one in somewhere around here. And so I thought, well, how can I use this to its best advantage? So I cut out those defects, made this shape, and this is the weak point here. Now, before this was put in, there's a screw that goes all the way down through this piece to keep those two halves together, because that's the way the grain's running and that's where it could split. Well, that's the Osmo finished. I can now leave it to dry. I'm going to give it 48 hours before taking it back to its rightful place. Many thanks for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.